What?
Technical difficulties.
God damn it, Dan. That conga line was so much fun. And then we destroyed the stream.
That's atmospheric. I mean,
I know, right? It's kind of creepy now.
Live from the void.
And you get to like try and figure out who's talking. I mean, but I guess welcome back to Visited by Voices. I am your moderator, not in moderation, Sam Carlson. Just in case I don't talk enough on this stream and you can't recognize my voice by now. So we're on our final week of the Readers Roundtable. Oh shit, look at that!
There we go.
Oh hell! All right, we're off to a great start. I think this is because Lauren said no pizza party. You know, it's just streaming karma. So we're on. Maybe StreamYard could get us a pizza next time.
There goes the pants-free stream. Sorry, guys.
No pulling a Gavin McInnes, Dan, okay? Moved right away.
That was wild.
I never want to see that again. Ever. So, welcome back to the Readers Roundtable, and we're on the final week. We're going to be covering pages 300 to 365, basically the last chunk of the book. And it just got, I always think, man, things can't get any crazier in this book, right? And then it somehow surprises me. And, oh, cool, my camera's all messed up too. Excellent. And so we got a full house today. To my this way, we have tall, droopy eye Chris.
Yes, hello.
Hey, baby.
Yeah, thanks.
That's my husband. So it's Mr. Sam.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here. I don't want to join the other ones because I went from 0 to 100 with this book, where I started I kind of slowly read it. Then I went from I think Sam brought it before. I went from page 116 to 278 in a day. So it's just massively consumed the book. As Sam said, it just progressively gets crazier and crazier. I just got sucked in. So I just wanted to come into the final show to do a big chat.
I know, and it's I couldn't, I literally finished it this morning. So when I was reading the stuff that went off the rails last week, I kept asking you things. You're like, I can't tell you. Do you want me to tell you? I was like, no, don't ruin it. Because I don't read fast enough. And also, Mr. Dan Shine. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us as always.
Absolutely. I made them all. Waffle House took me out of one. But yes, great to be here for the conclusion.
Did somebody throw a chair at you and you didn't catch it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it happens every now and then. And below we have, as above, so Jeff. No, Jeff the intern Bradley. How's it going, man?
First paycheck.
Nice. And I wanted to save our special guest for last, right? But then StreamYard would just shit itself, so whatever. But we have our friend of the show, Matt Doyle, author of Iluros, and this it was still the best episode that we've ever done. I think at least it's my favorite episode because it was so fucking funny, and it's also where we get the "don't parking" sign from.
No, it is good to be back again. That was absolutely brilliant. I've missed all the others because I was reading in bursts and I wanted to avoid the spoilers. So, but now I finished, so here I am.
Yeah, thank you, because I was so excited when I saw you finish the book. I'm like, awesome! I gotta ask him if he'll come on, because that would be, again, it's gonna be so much fun. It'd be more fun if we had gotten a pizza party, but I'll get over it. Oh, and a happy belated birthday to Matt. It was yesterday, right?
Yeah, it was. Thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. So I guess we'll get straight to the races here. So we started with episode 38, which is just titled Folgers. And we get to hear a little bit about Kilsibeth's dog, Folgers. And this is after she's done communicating the message to Chidima through the eggs. And than he was supposed to, which was a little ominous. But I think that plays out with another character, Lorne. So we'll get there when we get there, though. So there's this army of consulmen that's trying to get inside the bomb shelter, and I think we brought it up in a previous episode when we were asking how many there were, and I guess the answer is just all of them. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this because it seems like the consulmen come from the below, but not everybody in the above is a consulman that gets trued. So it seems like it's kind of like a ticket out of the below, right? The truing. Or do you think that they found a way in? Because I didn't see any. I couldn't find out where I don't think there's really any entrance to the below other than if you get the truing, right?
I think that's the only way.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess it's just full of consulmen down. They're just trying to get out. Well, I don't want to say them. I don't want to call them all consulmen, because even though it was like there are all these, there's this little army of blue, right? That might change in the above, but it does make sense now why they actually. I guess I'm still trying to figure out the thing with Miles Conrad, because you know how Green was pretending to be Miles Conrad, but So you know how it worked on Kilsabeth, but it didn't work on Green because he wasn't Miles Conrad. That shouldn't have mattered. But I think we already kind of determined that was probably from traumatic brain injury, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I took it differently. For me, it feels like the council, the evil army underneath. So I took the below as an alternate world that was allowed into our world through the comet, meteor, whatever that crashed. And then the only reason certain people can go over is because there's a matching mirror image in our world. And so when Green was, done, then the person who was trying to go over didn't mirror match. So all the council is full of people who could potentially mirror match, which is why they only choose certain people to come in. Everybody puts in, which is why, what's his face? The guy that Green left, I can't remember his name right now, that Green's pretending to be, was allowed in, is because his other person in the other world finally joined the council on that side. And I don't know if Lauren meant it for the blue, for the symbol for the council, but I kind of took that as you're joining the cult, so you're going to return the blue skies because you missed the blue skies, because the world they're currently in is dark, dreary, kind of gray, and terrible.
Yeah, I could see.
And it makes sense with the mirror as well, because like when they said about the little changes, that Kelsabeth there now has the pain in the right eye rather than the left eye. It's kind of it's looking at yourself in the mirror, isn't it?
Yeah, very true. So since they obviously they already know everything, because they have access to the below. I wonder where Yuri's below Yuri is, because clearly if he was supposed to be there first, they already probably had that set up, but Green had to take his place. Or do you think it would have been the same thing where the truing failed on Yuri?
That's difficult because, it must have failed to some degree. But like when we see later on that when they're sort of trying to bring Kelsabeth back, I wasn't sure how much time passed between them doing it there and back in our world. So I don't know if there's like a period of time where when they do the truing where you're sort of just floating, I guess, until you get to, until the other one comes, the available body comes up.
Okay. I could see that. I feel like it's interesting because it's like I'm just gonna have all these questions. Like when Lauren pops in later, I'm just gonna be like, well, what about this? What about that? And I'm just gonna have more questions. So, but yeah, because Ellie was mentioning the consulmen down there. They get training and meals and warm beds. They get a ticket to replace a version of themselves in a world that hasn't been torn to shit. So, yeah, I would assume that, the no entrance, those are just those doubles on that side. And Kelsebeth decides that, hey, let's just, open the door to them because we already know what's going to happen if we don't. They're just going to barge in and kill everybody. So, I mean, you don't really have a lot to lose at that point. And not a bad idea, actually, if you've got to take out that many people. Just kind of like pocketing the flintlock that was in Ellie's office and then pulling the guards on top of you and then just lighting the whole place up in a giant flash fry.
Yeah.
Or fish fry. I want to say fish fry. Really. But dude, like, oh God, your arm is gone, like from like right here. Wait, right here. Down. Oh, that was brutal. I was like, uh-oh, did Lauren just kill off Kelsebeth? Because I'm going to look like a real asshole. Because I was like, yeah, Kelsebeth's going to live, totally. Because I was honestly thinking she was dead at that point, given that that's what happened to, like, Meadowlark got flash fried. So. But I did like, the part where they're kind of having to, like, paw through the ash, to get to her after, the consulman that was on top of her gets killed. Because it was like, oh, this reminds me of Ghostbusters. It's like, oh no, like I'm stuck in this barbecued dog.
Imagine how weird that would be if it was the other way around, though, that you're there and you've got both arms, but then when you intrude back into our world, the person's lost an arm.
Yeah, that was also another thought, But then I kind of have to remember it's more like just a mind switch for the most part. Does everybody that comes out of the below end up being that fucked up, though? Because Kelsebeth comes back and she's feral. Like, more feral. So
they weren't all, though, were they? So maybe just Kelsebeth in the below was just an arsehole.
Yes.
I'm curious. I just want to know, like, I want stories in the below now. Because it's like, it seems like Ben and Ellie were also assholes. Because they came back and was like, oh, Jesus. So.
Well, I think anyone that would have to live in a perpetual apocalypse, probably not someone in a good mood all the time.
Well, as well as you're joining the cult in the apocalypse world kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't even light a cigarette to handle the stress. It's just awful.
Yeah, that's true. But Neil's fine. Like, they fucking left his ass in the below. They're like, no, we don't need to try and true him back here. He's happy. He's happy on the edge of the apocalypse.
Yeah, no more clocks.
The only movie they have is Halloween Ends.
Oh, God. The only movie they have is Halloween Kills.
It's even worse.
Yeah. They form a cult around it. Everybody only speaks Evil Dies Tonight. That's how they communicate with each other. It's like Pokemon, but worse.
Just different tones to how you say it is how you, express yourself.
Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. Yeah, I would try to find a match as quickly as possible if I was stuck there doing that.
I like the Night of the Living Dead, Ben and Barbara reference with Green and Raleigh at one point. I could be getting ahead of myself, and I apologize, but that was a nice little moment.
Yeah, I like that as well. I also like the, not to get too stuck on the whole mirror, the mirror motif, but again, more mirror images of being, having a mob at the door, both as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice touch.
More callbacks to Blue Eel as well.
Oh yeah, a lot of eels in this fucking section. There's a prayer room in the church and it's got an aquarium. And literally, like, my notes say, there's an aquarium in the prayer room full of fucking eels. And then later on, we come up with the 8's belly is sliced open and it's full of fucking eels. I put this so many times, I feel. Oh, what if Ellie isn't her real name? It's Ely. Too much?
That's a fan theory.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I know, it's going to be headcanon.
You've got an Ellie in that Last of Us show now. So,
it is too
how
much.
I'll picture her now.
Yeah. And it's just, yeah, and I'm very curious about that too. I'm very curious about where the eels will figure in with the rest of everything. So, like Ren is still in there with Green and Raleigh. Everybody else has been taken out though. So, Green's pretty much figured out that he's climbed the top of the church on all the wood and the steel beams, like on the inside. But the Parahelions decide to, they throw a brick through the window with a note on it, and it just says to go to like this particular window. So they, Raleigh does that, and she sees Kelsebeth with, on her knees, about to get her throat cut. And so obviously, terror ensues. But I was thinking to myself, but that's, for a moment, I wasn't sure if, oh yeah, because this is before Kelsebeth, fries everybody in the below. So I wasn't sure if they had gotten her out of the below, if they had dragged her back up, or if this was like evil Kelsebeth. And, well, I guess it is, so.
How were you screaming, cursing out Lauren when that was revealed?
With Kelsebeth or with Raleigh?
Well, yeah, Kelsebeth and Raleigh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because they get evil. They get Kelsebeth above Kelsebeth, into the church, her and Green. And then Kelsebeth stabs her in the stomach. And yeah, in my notes, it's like, then she kills Raleigh because fuck you, Lauren.
You jinxed
when that
it last
happened,
week.
I was like, oh no. And then she was all right briefly. And I was like, oh, yes. And then she wasn't. No.
It's like, there's a chance. Wait, the chance is gone. Damn it.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. It's like, again, I'm not surprised because he killed Abriella in Blue Eel, and I'm still sore about that. So always that, yeah, just not surprising. But I mean, we got to learn so much about Raleigh's past and how hurt and abused that she was. And, what would happen if she got out of the Parahelion job? Where does she go from there? Is she going to become part of the big Divide by Zero family? Because I mean, I hate to be cynical, but I don't think so. I mean, she seems a little set in her ways, so I don't know if that would. I don't think I could see her. I don't think I could see her opening up to everybody else. So, thoughts?
I thought Raleigh at one point might be the focal point of another book, possibly. I wasn't too sure. I kind of had a feeling towards the end, but yeah, it was a really powerful moment. I thought that was incredibly sad the way Lauren pulled that off with her death. I was hoping I didn't give it away last week because you were like just talking. It's like, he better not kill Raleigh, and I'm terrible at spoiling books for people. So
Let's be fair. We all knew, I was going to find out one way or the other. But yeah, it just, it was just it's a punch in the gut, not a knife in the gut, but still. But on the bright side, we have the cavalry coming.
yes.
Which, yeah, I actually got super excited about this. This was because as soon as, I think it was, it's one of the earlier chapters in here. And then Chidima, I know Yuri and Chidima were already on the way, right? And then Wells is hanging out. I'm like, hey, fuck yeah, Wells. And then there's Fisher. And I'm like, oh my God, Fisher's here too. And I'm like, oh no, where's Morozov? I was a little worried, but at the same time, I'm like, they could put him in the below and he'd have a high old time down there. I don't think he and Neil would get along, though. So, I mean, and they load up on firepower from Simon's son. I'm going to mispronounce this. Hakob or Hakob? Maybe Hakob like Jacob?
Hakob, I think.
Maybe. Okay.
I think that's how I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll go with Hakob. Hakob being the son of Simon, who was an arms dealer and also sold Branson Tarako the gun in Blue Eel. So just all these really fun little interconnecting moments. And I mean, they're loaded to the gills. And, they show up in Perihelion and they I think, like Wells and Fisher are the ones they keep everybody essentially at bay, since they're not like known to just dispatch large quantities of people. It's kind of like you do what you have to, but it's like, this is a town. This would kind of be like genocide or similar, at least a giant mass murder. So Chidima goes into the church and she can't really bring herself to shoot Kelsebeth, even though when she had, when she was at the range with Kelsebeth, Kelsebeth would say, imagine it's like her trafficker is the target. And I loved this part because you can see Chidima's really struggling. Yeah. Because she knows that can't be Kelsebeth. Because she doesn't like above Kelsebeth doesn't know her name. But it's still the same appearance. And she also mentions, her almost having like a waxy appearance, which again, like another nice little, kind of a pod person touch. So, there's this struggle that Chidima's having. It's like, it stops, like she stops seeing, like she feels like she's being attacked by her trafficker. And then it turns back into Kelsebeth in her mind's eye.
Mm.
And I was like, oh God, especially when like evil Kelsebeth like breaks her fingers and then stomps on the other fingers so she can't shoot.
Mm.
So as far as that goes, it's like, it's interesting because it's definitely more like a brute force type of thing with the above Perihelions. I mean, I guess I could just call them the Perihelions because well, I suppose there would be below Perihelions, right?
Yeah.
Because
that's where they came from, yeah.
Yeah. Because I was, again, I've been thinking more about this, how this all originated. And I'm guessing it's like, there was always the below society, right? And then that asteroid hit, and I guess it kind of, at that point, that's kind of where we get that weird multidimensional rift from. Mm-hmm. So there was always this cult. It just didn't exist in this universe, right? Because I mean, everything's
right.
pretty.
Not that we know of, I think.
Not that we know of.
Right. I suppose there's always a chance Lauren could throw another curveball later and say that they existed in both places. But I think the conceit here is that the Perihelions originated below and started working their way into, our world with the Metal Arc.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like it wasn't just us though, because they did. I was trying to find the quote when evil Kelsebeth.
There are other colonies.
We're going to send you somewhere worse than where I came from. I kind of got the impression that that wasn't so much a sort of like a go to hell. That was more a, have they got access, depending on like how you vibrate the needle? Have they been colonizing other places as well? Because I mean, what if your equivalent in the below is already dead over here, but in dimension over there, they're still kicking around.
Deep thoughts. I know. I'm just now. It's this again. This book broke my brain. I mean, in a good way, but it broke my brain.
For me though. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, for me though, I thought like when they said they had other places, I thought it was just different cults or different kind of like organizations in our world. So it's still like the two worlds connected, but they kind of diversified their cult stuff to where like, like almost like a Hydra kind of stuff. You cut off one head, like, oh, two more spring over here kind of stuff. So you can never fully get rid of them. Right. That's not
yeah.
I mean, they do say, don't they, we have more colonies.
Yeah.
Right here and there. So
was that above or was that somebody in the above or the below saying that?
I think that was someone from the below saying it in the above, because they kind of, I think they'd insinuated that even if you kill all of us here, there's still more colonies spread throughout your world. You're not going to stop us. There's too many of us, and you'll always be looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Ren that said it, but yeah.
I mean, I was thinking the the whole line about a worse place than where I came from, I thought that was mostly like saying, I'm going to mutilate you beyond recognition, and just that's how you're going to die. Like you're going to a worse place than where I came out of.
Patterson, New Jersey.
I'd rather be flash fried than mutilated. Like, even if I was alive after being mutilated, I'd probably rather just be flash fried and done with it.
Be quicker.
Yeah.
This is like though earlier, isn't it? When Kelsbeth was talking about she'd rather be shot than bludgeoned with whatever tool they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I love the fact that, again, above Kelsbeth, she doesn't have any of that. Like, she doesn't have any of the fight. Like, the good thing is that even though she's a feral bitch, she doesn't have any actual skills. She only has brute force. So, you can get the drop on her, but she doesn't know. She's using the gun like a bludgeon. She happens to be a fan of that. And then Yuri's able to get the drop on her pretty easily.
Was there ever any evidence of them using guns in the Below?
They had like a primitive flintlock, but
Yeah,
or maybe not primitive, but some sort of variation on flintlock. But that was about the only.
Exactly. And I was going to say that's why I think whenever they came, the perihelions on the I almost said the surface, but like our world, the above, they only used they didn't use any guns whatsoever. I feel like there was 2 points for that. One, because their souls coming over here had no training with guns whatsoever because their world could never use guns. And then 2, you start amassing guns, you start attracting attention of the government. So that way they can kind of keep hidden from everything.
that is a good point. Yeah. I thought it had more to do with the mind switches, right? Because, I definitely, can see where it's like, well, yeah, obviously you're going to blow up the world if you try to, shoot a gun in the Below. But because Kelsbeth just, she doesn't have the fighting skills either. So I thought those two were intertwined. But I don't know now that I think about it. So, I mean, Yuri got the drop on her pretty easily. And luckily, oh my goodness, sorry, my notes are lagging. I apologize. So, but I mean, luckily on the other side, they're trying to essentially. This is like I wanted to touch on this also. The other part with the eels and the Below, right? Because I'm wondering, do the eels come from this other dimension? They're parasites.
Yeah, I didn't get the vibe that it was filled with water there, but maybe. I don't know.
Because they cut open the 8's belly, and that's just because it's full of eels, and they want those damn eels, right?
Yeah.
Is that what was able to form the conduit? Is that the fact that through the eels in the 8?
I think that's the implication. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's been like I haven't read Blue Eel since maybe like last year or so, or a year before. One of those.
It's still better for me. I haven't actually read it yet. So.
Oh, you're in for a treat then. You're in you'll be like if you read Blue Eel anytime soon, then like you'll be able to really put all of these pieces together. So I might have to do a reread.
So actually, what's cool too in this whole section is we're not only getting Blue Eel references, we're getting Bleak December references.
Yeah.
They're much more subtle than the Blue Eel stuff, but they're definitely there, which is cool.
All very different books too.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't read the other two, they're very distinctly different while still being the same big universe, which I thought was cool.
Right.
I mean, I would say this is the least dark of the 3, which might seem odd, but I think that's definitely true.
Right.
So,
more adventurous.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff and Dan, can you guys like talk about some of the Bleak December references? Because I haven't had the chance to read it yet, so I'm in the dark.
So the name of the pamphlets in the church are pulled from Bleak December. And the name Clume, which is mentioned right at the end, is pulled straight from Bleak December, and that's probably the biggest. Yeah, I don't want to spoil Bleak December, but the name Clume is important in that novel.
Okay.
I don't know, Dan, any I'm not thinking of there?
I feel like there were a couple other subtle things.
Yeah.
Bleak December is amazing. That one's you don't want to spoil it, but that lives up to the title. That's a great book.
Right, the creepiest of the three, I think, for me anyway.
Yeah. I'm torn on which one is my favorite, but I love that they're all distinctly different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta go back and get that too now. So many books. So also one of the things is, so I'm guessing Clume is the creator of the Below. I mean, one of the Perihelions talks about the creator of the Below having moved to the Above. And that kind of like, I was thinking, what if it's Meadowlark? But then like Virgil Meadowlark dies at the beginning of this book, and I thought he's gonna come back. Motherfucker never comes back. So is it? Do you guys think it's Clume that's the creator of the Below?
Not necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. We definitely don't have those answers yet, which is cool, right? Like we're starting to see these interrelations, but there's no clear answer yet. So, right, it's kind of Lauren's playground to fuck with us in at the moment. We know that there's relationships going on, or that there's, this concept of Clume is kind of permeating both worlds, but beyond that.
Yeah, and I like the the whole thing with Clume, which seems like, for a second I was thinking maybe that the Clume is another cult, right? That's separate from the Perihelions, which maybe we're probably not there yet, but there is the whole thing, nothing and everything, or everything and nothing, that we get. I think it's at the end of the book when somebody who calls himself Clume goes to visit Kelsebeth's father. Is in nothing there is everything, and that's very similar to the theme of As Above, So Below. So probably, I feel like there's probably got to be some sort of connection there. I'm sorry, I have a cat on my lap. It happens. So, okay, and while they're in the Below, this is like right after the flash try, which was so cool. But they threw her back to her body in the Above, and I wasn't sure that. Like, I wasn't sure if if this was going to work. I was like, you can just go back and forth? I mean, it seems like, because it seems to just destroy your eyeball, so maybe you can only do it a couple of times.
It's going to look like HBK if you do it more than twice.
You're going to go bald?
Bald, just look like the Six Flags guy, just the eyes going all over the place.
That's better than Colonel Sanders. Do without that. But, it's like, I didn't know you could go back and forth, and just, it's like, Neil's just going to hang out, and even though I think she said something about not leaving him behind, like, we're both going home, and then he just doesn't fucking go home.
I have to say, when Kelsebeth picks out her glass eye to replace the damaged one, if she doesn't pick a massive glass googly eye, she is missing a beat there.
Exactly. Yeah, so, I mean, because you could get I don't know. I mean, the eye patch is really good, though. I kind of like the eye patch because, at the end when they're all kind of sitting, or, they're all at the bar, it's like, you could definitely pick up a lot of people with an eye patch. That's kind of an unfair advantage she'd have over Fisher. So, I mean, I guess, I wonder if it's one of those things where it's like, picking out a glass eye, sometimes you can just do the novelty glass eyes, right? But is it, it's like, I used to bowl a lot, so I'd always want to go with the weird ones. Like I had a Scream ball. I also had with the ghost face on it. I also had the clear bowling ball with the skull in it, right? A la Mystery Men. So it's like, can you do that with glass eyes too? Because that sounds like it would be like, that makes it like that. I feel like if I lost an eye, I wouldn't be so upset about it if I could do shit like that.
So with the Scream bowling ball, were the holes in like the holes where for the eyes and the mouth on the mask, or was that on the other side? 'Cause
As far as I remember, it wasn't on the mask. But the design, from what I remember, didn't cover the entire surface of it. So it was just sort of like, here's the decorative area. And, the skull one, I actually never had a chance to get drilled, unfortunately. So, but it was like 15 pounds. I couldn't lift that. So, what kind of glass eyes would you guys get? Would you all do googly eyes? Oh my god! But what the problem is she can't do a googly eye because they're gonna then people are gonna think that she's been trued. That she's still a Perihelion.
How does she ever go undercover again? She's got instinctive glass eyes.
I mean, yeah, I guess if she has to keep hunting them. But
you get a glass eye to mirror the actual her other eye for jobs, but then the rest of the time she just has whatever the hell she wants.
Right.
Yeah.
For the after party.
A glass eye of a piece of pizza in it.
I wouldn't mind having a glass eye that's like when you look at it, it's just like you see pizza. Because I mean, most people enjoy pizza. I mean, they're gonna be like, "Is that a pizza in your glass eye?" And I'm like, "Yes," and they're gonna be like, "Okay, well okay," but still, they're gonna automatically probably like you better because pizza is enjoyed by so many people.
Depends what's on the pizza, though.
Pineapple,
Yes.
jalapeno, chicken.
Oh,
Yep.
jalapeno, I'm with you, but yeah.
It makes a good contrast. But no, I was gonna say, if you could do some kind of special glass eye, Magic 8-Ball.
Ooh, that's so much better. Okay.
Then we can kind of like shake your head. It's like signs point to no.
That'd be like a full D'Lo Brown, and then it would just
Yeah.
Oh no. D'Lo is just predicting the future every Monday night.
Yeah, but the problem is every time it comes up, running.
Yeah.
It's what Virgil was doing when he was trying to do the news there, just the D'Lo.
Virgil would have a meatball glass eye, let's be fair. God, I'm sorry. I'm apparently very hungry today.
Pizza and wrestling.
I know, and flash frying people. No. All right, so I think we're at this point where we're back up into the church, and oh, good, Kelsabeth is back. There's really not much discussion in the way of like, hey, you killed Raleigh. I mean,
Yeah.
Nobody kind of brings that up. I know that she's the boss and they're paying her, but hey, you killed Raleigh.
I mean, they kind of figured it out though, didn't they? Because Chidima obviously had received the message, and while she had her doubts, she knew. And Green, it's very, very much indicated, isn't it, that no, it sounds like her now. There's clearly, it was someone else. So I think they just they know, and they're probably happy to have her back as an ally in the situation they're in.
Yeah, that's true too.
Well, as well as I kind of took it as they didn't acknowledge it because they're all professionals, so they compartmentalize everything to decipher later.
Yeah,
because it's like, we don't have time to deal with this right now. We've got a crazy cult trying to kill us. Let's go kill them first.
I mean, that's probably best for the job. So, all right. Let me see. Where are we at? Okay. Yeah. So she, comes back, and eventually they kind of just get out of there. So.
And do slaughter everyone as well.
Yep.
That's right.
It's that one guy. Because
Morozov.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, guys, I got it. Don't worry.
I know. Like,
Fulfilled his purpose.
Exactly.
Realistically, though, probably didn't get everybody. We're talking like 600 people, so I'm sure that'll factor in later on.
No, I don't know. I feel like because it was like, hey, round him up in the church. I'll take care of him. Like, oh, jeez, dude. Okay.
And then, at least one of the councilmen in the excavation site may have survived as well, right? That Rowley stabbed in the leg and he was applying a tourniquet to. So
that's true.
That's a loose end.
Who? Not Ren, though, right?
Oh, no, Ren's dead.
Ren's dead.
Yeah. I mean, after the brick, yeah. And Kelsebeth wouldn't let Green do it. I love that callback. She didn't leave him with the brick in his hand. But yeah, sounds like I think she finished off the job with Ren. So.
Well, as well as didn't they burn the church down to the people inside? So I think that's kind of like extra on top of Ren being dead.
Well, sure. I mean, you gotta get rid of all of that evidence too. And it's just where do you think that they dropped off Raleigh's body? I mean, because it was in the van with them when they left. I don't know.
I like to think the guy that Green kind of shanghaied and dropped off in some random backwoods cabin. They just kind of pull up. He thinks that he's finally having people show up to take him where he's supposed to go, and they just dump Raleigh's body in and peel out.
It's part of the throwing. It's fine. Don't worry.
I don't know. To me, I would take it as I think they would do like a Viking funeral for her, kind of like don't leave evidence, but also kind of like honor her, kind of stuff like that. So like stop somewhere, middle of nowhere, set it ablaze, and have a shot, kind of commemorating her.
Yeah, that sounds right. Following the destruction of the town and all the perihelions, I guess there was some insurance. But hey, and then the gal from the beginning, Isabis, the one that was the housekeeper for Kelsebeth, like the first couple of days that she was there, and she wasn't a perihelion, but turns out that she's getting like $250,000 because she's on the beneficiary list, and like, well, you got to go down a long ways, but you get there. Mm-hmm. And the lawyer's like, well, you know what? It seemed weird that this was altered, like, so close to, when this happened, but I got paid extra, so fuck it.
New pool.
I thought it was more than $250,000. I thought it was like at least $100 million.
Yeah,
plus.
It was a ton.
It was a ton of money.
I'm sorry, not $250,000, like $250 million.
It's a $250 million. Yeah.
Excuse me, I am incorrect.
Yeah, because she got that because she got all the money that the perihelion cult had together. And they had like a 10%, 20% lawyer's fee. It's like, oh yeah. Keep quiet.
Wait, I want an end credits at the movie where Isabis buys Twitter.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm guessing that's Chidima being a hacker again. But it seems like Kelsebeth also has her own hacking skills, Because I mean, I don't think that when she forged the documents with the trafficker with Yu. I don't think that it's probably. I'm sure that's probably just one part, like one of her many skills.
You can know that she's proficient in everything, but she also understands that there are other individuals who are better at individual things than her as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. It was nice to see Isabis get paid though. And let's see, I think that we're kind of wrapping up to the point where we're at they're partying at the bar. And of course, Kelsebeth has got the eye patch and everything. But it seems like she and Green have some kind of thing going because she's not playing the game. But also, if I was missing my eye and I just went through all that, I would not be interested in getting laid at that point either. So do I sense a romance?
Seems like
Yeah, it seems like it. I could see it because one, she's not playing the game, and two, earlier in the book, I wasn't there part of that discussion when Green was going over his story about at the airport, him seeing the host, the barista at the coffee shop, being his age, and him saying she's too young for him. It's like, oh, I know who you're into.
I know you mentioned that before, but I'm just kind of like, it's now sinking in, like, oh, yeah. Also, I noted, like, it's mentioned that Green drinks his drink very quickly. I'm like, there's something there. We'll see where it goes. And I love Chidima's just, like, trying to scroll on her phone with her broken-ass hands. I mean, she's going to shop for those air mattresses. So... how do you guys feel about Divide by Zero being like a full-fledged team now? I really love it.
I do as well. I'm very curious to see how that factors into the future.
Yeah. I think it's a good, I think it's a great choice because it's just, I didn't realize how, I guess, attached I got to like Wells and Fisher until they showed back up. And I was like, oh, thank God, my heart. But then again, it's always like, oh God, where's Morozov? Who's got eyes on Morozov? He's probably going to be one of those dudes just does little freelance work on the side. He's temp to hire, but he never gets past temp.
Kind of view him as like the Mr. T, like they got to drug him to fly, sort of thing.
Well, I took him as more like, I said I kind of took him as more like in Firefly, he's the Jane.
Yeah.
What is a Jane in Firefly?
Adam Baldwin.
Yeah, Adam Baldwin. Like, so basically he was just the hired gun and he loved killing. And he was just that rogue. If you're doing like a D&D kind of party, he's 100% the evil, like the lawful evil rogue.
Okay. Fair enough. And then, we get to essentially the end of the book, which like, oh God, I've destroyed this thing. Nobody can see how fucked up the spine is, but it's there. And, that Kelsebeth goes to visit her father and notices the door's not locked or anything like that. And apparently he had a visitor who was claiming to be her uncle, even though her uncle's been dead for years. And that's how we get Clume. And then where do we go from here? So at this point, I guess, unless you guys have anything else you want to share about like this section or the book in general, we could always, we can bring Lauren on and bother him.
Yeah, let's harass.
There you go.
All
So,
right.
yeah, because we have questions. Let's bring the guy on to answer some questions if he can.
Yes.
Instead of like leaving him to just be like, no, you idiots. Hello, Lauren.
Hello, you idiots.
Thank you very much.
So first off, I just want to say thank you guys for reading the book. That's where it all starts, right? Because listen, anyone in their house can print words on paper. What happens from there on out is a whole different issue, and it's been amazing actually watching these. I smile so much, even when like what is intended starts to go afield, because it's just amazing to see the process of people consuming your work, and when they get it, it's awesome. But when they don't get it and they have their own like interpretation, it's also wonderful because you realize you planted a seed that when else is that going to happen, right? So to me, the beauty of all art is it's the concept is trying to get what's in your head into someone else's head. And every time either Sam or Dan or Mike or anyone pointed out that I think this is what this means, and it's like completely where my head was at. It's like, yes, okay, I'm not completely inept at my job. So it's been a great bit of voyeurism to watch you guys go through the book, but thank you for reading it before these shows aside. Just putting in the time to read this 340-page thing that was never meant to be as long as it ended up being. I really appreciate that, and for poor Jeffrey, I think this is probably altogether close to a third read. So yeah, kind of have some debt there.
Okay, so I guess now that you mentioned that though, I do want to know my first question is just, what were some times when you were like, no, why would you think that? Or yes, you're on the right track. Are there any particular instances that really kind of come to mind?
Well, it's tough again because it was split into 6 groups.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it was more like, well, she's not there yet, as opposed to I clearly screwed that up because she didn't get it at all. But I mean, there's certain things I think it's not that I wasn't seeing it as an as above so below thing, but writing is really the key to good writing is to figure out how your own brain works first before you write. Because if you don't know how your brain works, you're never going to get ideas in order to do it. So I didn't think of it so much as an as above, so below issue, although that's integrated in. To me, it was what if a dying world had access to our world? And there's this convoluted way they have to do it. And I used vibration because actually that's pretty much where the science kind of lies.
Resonant frequency.
Yeah, and I just so I didn't really think of it in that way. I also I'm just amazed that you guys just didn't just hate the Jamie character the whole way through the book. Because the whole point is she's supposed to be kind of like something to be pitied and looked down upon. But then at the end, when they're driving out of town, spoilers, as if we haven't spoiled the whole book, right? The idea that like she could have been already turned. They don't stop to really investigate, but it's that moment of like that genuine like sympathy of like, okay, she wasn't one of those that was surrounding the church. We're gonna let her go. So there's that. To me, that's part of. There's two things in the book that are important. It's that Kelsebeth is learning to trust people and to allow people near her. That's why the Hayden's Court job is so important, because they're stealing the heart, whereas the book is really the team winning hers, right? That's why the third job is the Kelsebeth job. Of course, that sounds really cheesy and like a Hallmark card if you just say it like I just did.
I like it. It's cute.
But hopefully reading it, it's like, okay, the position at the beginning is they're going to play a game where you try and pick up and go fuck people in a cheap hotel to see who can do it. By the end, she's like, actually maybe on the verge of a romance, probably, right? It's not that kind of book. I don't really want to go there, but that's a big growth for a character, right? That's not just an arc. That's like the character choosing to fundamentally change who they are, allowing people close.
I don't want to disappoint you, but I feel there's like a 0% chance Hallmark's gonna hire you, Lauren.
Well, I could use a third job.
I want the Lauren Dixon Hallmark Christmas movie.
Man, that would be great.
I don't think you do.
That will be a bleak December.
Oh, there it is.
Bleak December was supposed to be read as a calendar. It was supposed to be an advent calendar where you read a chapter for every week, for every day, leading through the holiday. That's why instead of chapters, there's days. And the editing, that got a little funky at the end, but whatever.
I'm just glad that, like, now that I think about it, Kelsebeth got to go back to her own body because she doesn't have to get all of those things tattooed again.
Right? But then again, how great would it be to have the canvas back and be able to do something different?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess if you guys have more questions for me, but I also have questions for you guys, because this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity that no writer ever gets. So
what does plume mean? Where does that word come from? Because I tried Googling it, and mostly I kept finding this jazz track. And
that makes sense.
Hebrew.
So it is a Hebrew word. It doesn't have the O in it. And it well, you can find out what it means. It probably tells you a little bit more about the character. But yeah, the nothing and everything, the entire nihilist philosophy is kind of wrapped up in Clume. And as we learn more about that character in the 6th book, which is titled Clume, you'll probably will understand. No, you'll definitely understand exactly what he is and what he wants. Because obviously, like, there's kind of a global horror thing going on here. But I always, when I read Lovecraft or Clark Ashton Smith or Kuttner or any of those guys, the big question I always had about their monsters with hyphenated names and asterisks was like, what do these things want? What does Cthulhu actually want? Because it seems like he just pops out of his temple on the island and is like, hey dudes, I don't like fishermen. And that's it, right? We never get the, like, what does Cthulhu want? Which is why of the elder gods in the mythos, Nyarlathotep is my favorite, because you actually kind of understand what that character wants, even though he's a celestial space god. Clume, you're going to know exactly what he wants. And he has a character, which it's something I also like. I like the idea of beings that we can't quite comprehend because they're kind of beyond us, but you can actually try and build a character still. You don't have to just cop out and be like, oh, it's unknowable. Which to me it's fine for stuff that was written in the 30s, but 90 years later, should we still be playing that game? I don't think so. If you want to know who Clume is, read Bleak December. That's your introduction to that character. That book is extremely dark. It's extremely mean. There's a reason that I was under contract with a publisher who decided they didn't want to do it. And then thankfully another press did, but Cutting Block literally didn't want to do the book because of 3 scenes and just the overall mood of the book. It's a very, very, very dark book. But you need that because villains shouldn't be smiles and happy. So I think.
Okay. That's cool. I just looked up Clume, the Hebrew word for in Hebrew, and it means nothing. So it kind of makes sense now. It's like in nothing there is everything, right? At the end of the book. So this will be my last question. I'll stop fucking talking. Sorry, but
I don't believe her, by the way.
Shut up. Wait, no, answer my question, then shut up. So what is this like? Is this like, I don't want to I know that, don't want to jump ahead to any future books or because, they haven't been written yet, whatever.
Well, 1.5 have.
Okay. Well, we're not at the next roundtable yet. So what would be, is there a difference between what Clume is doing versus something like a being that has a combination of opposites stored inside of it, right? Like all the contradictions, right? Because that's when I saw the as above, so below, I'm like, oh, we're going somewhere.
Well, so I mean, the as above, so below in French philosophy is very, very intertwined with the Nietzschean nihilism. So yeah, you're on the right track. When you discover it, it's almost going to be one of those things that once his motivations are revealed, you're going to be like, oh, well, that makes complete sense because he's been screaming it since the beginning. But it's hard because again, human motivations are different, whereas he has a philosophical motivation that's pure. And humans don't do pure philosophy very well. Like we siphon it through like our own prejudices and our own desires in our lives. And he doesn't have that. What he wants is very simple. And you're going to wish to hell he could just get it. But how he has to get it? Well, let's just say Oppenheimer has nothing on him.
Okay, so the whole as above, so below thing, that didn't have any relation to like the Emerald Tablet or Hermes Trismegistus?
Not an intention. But I think you're dealing with all these concepts that are all interrelated. I think when we talk about philosophy, there really aren't a lot of different viewpoints of the world. It's a lot of different ways to process it. So it's not like I think you're off base at all. It's just it wasn't a conscious decision that I made while writing it.
Yeah, because I didn't really get those, pick up those really. I didn't really pick up any other real alchemical references, right? But those things all do run parallel to each other, even if they don't intersect.
They come to the same unwritable conclusion about humanity is what it comes down to. Because remember, we don't know, we can't evaluate anything about the natural world because our perspective on it is always going to color it. It's the same way as in a vacuum or in space, there is no plotting a position for anything, right? Because arbitrarily, where's your starting point that you're going to measure from? So it's the same kind of thing in philosophy. It's like we can never really understand the world. There's no set of logical rules that are going to get you there because we have to start from us, and we're already a flawed indicator. So I mean, I think that Nietzsche is the big motivating philosopher for this book series, definitely. Maybe that's maybe it seems simple because he's such a popular one, but I mean, I don't know. I think that it's somewhere between John Lydon and Nietzsche is where this book's heart is. So. That's
really cool, though. I didn't realize that the as above, so below stuff was more connected to Nietzsche at all. So, I mean,
it ends up there. I feel it ends up there.
Okay. Well, I will actually stop talking this time, mostly because I really have to take a piss. So, who wants to ask questions?
I have a question, actually.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, I was obviously spoiled, let's say, in that even reading through it the first time, you and I had talked about a lot of where it was heading ahead of time. And I'm curious, has anything that you've heard people talking about the book changed how you perceive things happening in the background, right? That it may impact events in later books or cause you to think about it in a different way?
I don't know yet. That might be the sanest answer there. Because I'm working on I'm so Cenotaph, the next book, is written. Citadel is about at the halfway point, although I keep going back and rewriting sections because one thing I'm discovering is if you want to write a 9-book series, yeah, consistency is a bitch. So the story is not going to change at all. I think that the stuff that this group has kind of like reinforced worked. It's going to be easier to write that type of stuff going forward. I'll have a little bit more confidence because again, when you're writing, and Matt, you can speak to this. Jeff, you can also speak to this. When you're writing, you don't know if any of it's going to fucking work. You don't know if any of it's going to connect the way you hope it does. And the alternative is to spell everything out, which would be I wouldn't even do this if I had to do that. That's poison to me. I could never write an episode of CSI. So yeah, I mean, I guess the big surprise is I didn't expect as much charity towards all the characters. Although it probably shouldn't come as a surprise because at least one editor has pointed out that Morozov is their favorite character. And that wasn't really the intention, but it's kind of cool anyway. It doesn't change who he is. It's just, I guess the character is compelling if you like psychotic Russians. I don't know.
With a penchant for Tolkien.
Yeah, exactly. And that may be very important in the future, by the way. So it might be a detail that matters. But no, I don't think anything. It's not going to change where this. I already know the story. Obviously, the closer books I know very well. I know big chunks of where it. I know all the major story beats from the later books, but I don't know. The connecting tissue will become much more sharp focused when I get closer to writing it. Hopefully,
but you're not reinterpreting anything now that you had already written based on how you're hearing the audience perceive it.
No, listen. You know what he's getting at here? He's getting at the fact that in the first draft of this, the sum of how the connection between the two worlds was not quite as clear, and he gave me bullshit about it. So I went back and I clarified it. So he just wants credit. He just wants credit for what he did. Fucking first readers. Nah, Jeff has been amazing with me because we've been in writing groups together, and you hand someone 4,000 words, they could easily just kind of give you a few surface revisions and they say, I liked it, or it didn't really work for me, and not give you anything more. Like Jeff has never done that with me, and I hopefully have never done that with him. There's been times when neither of us have had the time to actually properly critique each other, and then we just don't. We just tell each other we're not going to do it at the moment. But I think the lack of bullshit from Jeff is a real reason why all three of these books actually, because he came into my orbit right during the writing of Blue Eel, late I believe, right?
Yep, very late. I think it may have been in its final edits when I saw it.
Yeah. But he's been a big part of keeping me honest and calling out bullshit, which is good because I have a lot of bullshit.
I'm not arguing.
So right now I'm just going to post a copy of his first novel.
Speaking of bullshit,
Do it.
I
Our next Readers Roundtable will be for Jeff.
But not Jeff's good new stuff, like his shit old stuff.
Yeah. Oh my god.
We all have shit old stuff, by the way.
I still have old literary magazines with my awful short stories, and I cringe every time.
Yeah. I'm so happy. My first short story I sold to a market. It was I didn't make a dime off of it, but it was called Nocturnal Lyric. The first short story, because I'd had some different, like, I don't even know what they're prose poemish type things. But so Nocturnal Lyric came out, and it was photocopied so poorly you couldn't read it, literally. And I remember being kind of depressed about that when it came out. Now I'm ecstatically happy that no one can read it. It's great.
Amazing.
Just little punk scenes out of the Midwest. We went down to the local Kinko's or Office Depot and made copies and stapled them together. But I felt like, hey, someone published me, for whatever that means, right? Today, people can self-publish, and it's kind of the same thing. But I don't know. Someone cared enough to say yes. And you know, us guys love to hear yes.
So one thing that kind of came up when I was reading this, you know, when they're down in the caverns, right? And they find this city that's all that, you know, is the city that is just a carbon copy of the one above them, right? So
But why is it a carbon copy of the one above them?
that's why, yeah, that's the thing, because it's like that's the same universe. That's not the quote unquote below Asheville universe.
So part of the concept here, and I think it resonates with different people differently, which is the whole issue here. At the point of impact, when the meteor / comet, whatever it was, it's not like I'm going to reveal that in 2 books, hits down, it strikes with such ferocity and creates the vibration that it actually physically moved that town to Earth. But it's underneath, because again, just like time doesn't work the same place, geography doesn't work the same. That is the town on the other side, somewhere else. And so but it comes through with such force, it fossilizes everything, including people.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, because I had a hunch, but I didn't know what to do with my hunch.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't want this book to be something that just kind of it's not Goosebumps, right? Goosebumps is great when you're a kid, but it spells everything out.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean that was wild when that happened, though. I wasn't expecting it at all.
Well, I guess that's a good question for you guys. Like, one thing I love when I read, whether I read my favorite writers, whether it's Brian Hodge or Wellman or Dunsany or Dasani and Trissani. That's a match. I love to be surprised. I love when a story does something that feels organic, so it doesn't feel cheap, but manages to actually surprise you. Like, oh, I really didn't see that coming is a great moment for me. And it kind of gives me faith in reading, to be honest with you, in books and literature and storytelling, because we keep hearing all the stories have been told. And like, hey, Matt's book is not a story that's been told before. You know, I would say The Ancestor is not a story that's been told before. They might not be so different you can't do some weird like thought algebra to come up with it, right? Mm-hmm. So Alien plus House of Leaves plus Manchurian Candidate, you know, whatever that is, right? But at the point where you have to get that convoluted, that's a new story. Mm-hmm. And I think it's those moments that make new stories, whereas, oh my God, that makes complete sense. I didn't see it coming. So did this successfully do that for you? And I designed it, hopefully, that there are basically every 50 pages one of those moments. Did that come through, or
I mean, for
my horrible, miserable failure?
No. I mean, I just kind of like, I find myself continually thinking, rethinking over the structure of the below, even though it's just off to the side, you know, and how everything corresponds to the above. Like that I actually like can't remove from my brain, which is, you know, which I like that. It's just, you know, I appreciate the fact that, you know, you kind of confirmed when the space thingy hit, it just shifted the Earth, because the geography is also different, because that also kind of like, because I was like, well, there's an above and there's a below, but there's an off to the side. What are we doing? Is there's a below under the below? Because the first second I was thinking, is the portal just in this old house? What happens if you keep going?
Well, so there's not a pathway to physically walk between the worlds, right? So But the idea is that if your mind is sharing the same frequency as your mind on the other side, which is why they both have to, be resonating at the same frequency, that you can just swap between.
Love that.
And is that garbage science? Of course, it's garbage science, but it doesn't matter as because
Well, I mean, they're starting to use
there
more
aren't
sound.
space gods either, so we're good.
Well, no, I mean, there's a guy named Anthony Holland who's been experimenting with resonant frequencies as far as like destroying cancer cells. That's why that shit's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, ooh, vibration.
But were there surprises that caught you particularly off guard? Because that's important to me.
I said this on previous shows, but there's zero way when you start the book that you're going to know where it's going. Throughout the whole thing, it's just, I never would have thought, oh, different dimensions with the way this book starts. And I think there's just the comparison so far. I don't know what you have coming up, if those will all be uniquely different in the way these three books are, but it's been a hell of a ride having read them in order for me. Which I'm kind of curious what the experience will be for some of you guys that are going to go back and read Bleak December, and because very different experience, and I'm dying to know where you go with the next one.
Well, if you die, you're not going to find out.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's how
I'll
this
try
works.
not to.
So the first four books, Blue Eel, Bleak December, Divide by Zero, and Cenotaph, are intentionally written so that they're all entry points.
Yeah.
You don't have, you can read them in any order and you'll be fine. Like
there's
stuff you might be like, what's going on with the eels at the end of this book, but it kind of explains what the eels are doing, so you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you want to find out about the eels, well, there's a book called Blue Eel. And you want to find out what Clume is about, well, there's a book called Bleak December that'll show you at least what he's capable of. And the next book, Cenotaph, while it's going to feel very isolated, like it takes place in a very small corner of this world, there's stuff built into it that is going to help you a lot when you get past that. Starting with the fifth book, Citadel, you kind of have to be caught up. It's going to be a little bit harder to tell a completely self-contained story 5 books in. So at that point, just buckle up and be ready. But there's 9 books total in this cycle. We got a long way to go. Not every character. Once you get past the next book, all the major characters are on stage for this cycle. But you have to be willing to acknowledge that there's going to be a significantly smaller cast by the end.
You're going to kill me with this, man.
Who's going to kill his characters?
It's a horror series.
I know.
It's like you said, if 10 people go into a cave, 10 people can't come out.
Yep.
Right.
I'm honestly was more surprised that like the below Kelsebeth like died down there than I was about Raleigh dying. So, but
Raleigh was to me that I love when people, as a reader anyway, I love when I change my opinion of a character during the course of reading something. And like what I wanted this to be is she's kind of this bratty character who doesn't want to be there. So we kind of don't want her there because we want the adventure to start, right? So and this character is kind of dragging her feet. But I wanted along the way a thing to happen, whereas you started to understand what she's about, and she ultimately is probably the bravest character. And if she doesn't do what she does, frankly, all of it falls apart.
yes.
Anyone else could probably act differently, but her. And there could still be a quote unquote happy resolution, but she's the linchpin. And so in a very serious sense, she's the hero of this story, in the same way that, oh my God, I'm going to make a Star Wars reference, in the same way that Han Solo is more important to Star Wars than Luke Skywalker is.
I would agree with this.
The thing with Raleigh for me though, I never got the sense that I didn't want her to be there. I thought her more sort of bratty behavior to me, it kind of made her feel like a bit of a wild card. Like if something's going to go wrong, she could well be the cause of this. And I liked that as an element in the overall group. So I was kind of hoping something is going to happen. But then by the end of it, I was like, oh, I love this character. Why did you have to kill this character?
Well, that's why she had to go, right? Come on, Matt, you would have killed her too. Don't even start with me. Yeah, so that's the thing. Is like if I one thing that genuinely so I talk about the stuff I love in fiction. I talk about the authors who have inspired me. I'm not going to name anyone who has not inspired me, but I will say one of my pet peeves with a lot of modern horror, especially a lot of small press modern horror, is I don't give a shit about the characters. And so, like when they hack them up 70 different ways and creative ways, they're far more creative about dismembering a body than I am. But you don't give a shit because you don't care about the characters, and that's the thing. I get driven crazy because it seems like the art of creating characters inside of horror media, because it's not just books, it's movies too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, watching Saint Maud, I had my heart broken like 7 different ways during that movie, and that's why that's a great film. That's what I want from horror. I want to invest in characters and care when bad shit happens, because I do think of this as misery porn. We all want bad shit to happen to things we like. We just don't want it in our personal real life. We want it safely on a page or on a screen. So yeah, I mean, the idea was I wanted you to be perhaps not in love with Raleigh and then really love her to the point where it hurt. I loved playing with Sam about Chidima while she read it, consistently telling her that she was going to die. I enjoyed that.
Oh yeah.
Because I knew that character was going to be like from the very beginning. I think Jeff, you had told me very early that was like basically your favorite character, at least at one point in your reading. Mm-hmm. And I knew the character was working. And I thought that like it would have been too easy. She would have been too easy to make the sacrificial lamb, because people already started with a point of I like that character. It's less interesting to me. But if it's a character you change your mind on, it has a whole different depth when that character has to go. Were any of you surprised that I didn't kill more of the cast?
I was.
Yeah, I thought a much bigger body count than what we got, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at least people we care about, because it's like you did kill an entire town in one.
Well,
dimension.
yeah, a lot of people did that.
It's all red shirts.
Yeah, but
some of them were wearing blue.
Most were blue, yeah.
Damn.
But things are different up here.
Things are different up here.
I was honestly just more impacted by like Kelsebeth like dying in the below. Even though that doesn't matter because her mind gets switched back upstairs, so it's fine.
Well, does it not matter?
I mean, it had the impact on me, like, oh my god, no. And I was like, oh no.
Do you think you go through that and nothing changed?
Oh no, I'm sure she's quite a bit different than what she was before. It was just brutal. And it's like she just went through this lobotomy. Now she's in another dimension, and then she just flash fries half of her, half of her body.
Well, she didn't intend. It's just there was no way around it.
I know. It's just it was just like, oh my god. There's just a lot. And I think the reason it felt like it was just, I think it was so gut-wrenching is just learning so much about Kelsebeth through all of these chapters leading up to it. That is, that was kind of.
So structurally, to throw the hood off my own book, that's why the beginning of the book, the Hayden's Court job is from a bunch of different perspectives and different points of view, right? So we have all these sub-chapters to break it up and give you all these different perspectives, all this stuff happening in the prison. Not a coincidence. And then we start hard cut. And as soon as we get the new job offer, we're only getting Kelsebeth's point of view until we have a major beat disruption. And that's of Ellie and Benjamin going to visit their father. But there's a huge section of this book that's a single point of view. And that was to provide you with that, because when I remove her, and now we're multiple viewpoints for the third act. The first act told you how to read the third act, first off. But the investment in the character, even when she's off screen would hopefully still linger there. And obviously that moment, whether it's in the church or in the battlefield, hopefully you care enough that there are big moments like, oh my God, where's this next chapter? Where, how, that was the intent. So yeah, I mean, but I think the structure of the book was, I always felt it was going to be scary to submit that as a work, because I always felt most publishers would be like, you can't introduce these characters and then abandon them for 220 pages.
Watch me.
But I think it plays because like that moment when her team come together for her, that's kind of the whole book, right? That's it. That's the moment. That's what the book is about. The book is about a person who doesn't trust other people, that learns to trust them because they come together for her. It's very
the
like
band's back together moment was really cool.
Yeah, and the challenge there was not to make it feel, droll, not to make it feel like, an after school special. See, kids, friends are good. So I think these are still dangerous people, and I think that's what helped. I like that Fisher and Wells still bicker, and that's a good thing that they bicker, because it is kind of like a family dynamic, even though it's they might shoot you in the head twice.
Mhm.
But if they're just playing, it's just going to be in the leg,
Maybe
a little knee trauma.
Maybe.
You have
Matt,
two. You don't need both.
So Matt, we both have books on Fractured Mirror.
Yes.
I think we both enjoyed our time with Fractured Mirror as well. The ladies are awesome. They just are.
Yeah.
And our books are very different from each other's. I think that's an understatement, actually. But isn't it amazing that we found a home that took your work and mine and was like, no, this makes sense to us, and they supported, because your book is not a traditional sci-fi horror, and whatever House of Leaves is, because that's what that's always gonna be where I like project onto you, and I saw that must annoy the fuck out of you, but whatever, because just that unconventional storytelling, that multi-level storytelling that you do.
So, no, see, I like that projection, to be fair, because House of Leaves was such a big influence on me when I was writing it. So, that's a good thing. But yeah, no, you're right. And they've been absolutely wonderful to work with from start to finish. And that was a book for me with Iluros. Finding people who would give it a chance at all was really difficult, really, really difficult. So, but again, I like the diversity in their catalogue as well. I think it's a good thing. You don't want to have necessarily the publisher that everything they're going to publish is this, because eventually you get tired of reading the same thing. No matter how many different angles you come in. I like that with Fractured Mirror, you don't really know what the next one's going to be.
Yeah. And almost every publisher has a page that talks about diversity at this point, right? Online. I like that it's not just diversity of immutable characteristics, but stories. Like they were willing to take big swings, and I think that's an amazing thing. So like, just shout out to our publisher for being like on the right side of this fucking fight. I think a lot of people are publishing the same stories repackaged, and that's what creates that narrative that all the stories have been told. Well, Matt and I are here to say no.
Yep.
Stop thinking that way, and don't accept it. Like every time you buy that book, and we all know the people who write I'm not saying Steve Alton, but maybe Steve Alton. The people who write the same book 17 times and you buy it 16 times, maybe skip out on number 17 and buy something that's a little bit friggin' different.
I like as well with Fractured Mirror, they don't pigeonhole you as an author either, because I'm not going to go into detail about it here, but like my next one with them is a very different type of book to Iluros, so I think they're just looking at what you're doing, and they're taking what they think is going to connect with people. So it's a good thing.
It's an amazing thing. You guys have any more questions?
I'll give you a question actually about the resonating. You say obviously they've got to have the brain resonating in the same frequency. So how much of a time limit is there on that? Because I've got images in my head now. Obviously, when they're doing the truing in the cult, I'm assuming there's like messages pinging back and forth saying, okay, now hit the needle. But with them trying to switch Kelsebeth back, I kind of have got the image in my head now that one side or the other may have just been having to just bash away at the needle, waiting for it to happen in the other dimension.
Well, time doesn't work the same way on both sides, right? which is why we have that a disparity between when the meteor hit and when it actually hit Meadowlark in the studio. But I think that it is a struggle. My take on it would be that it is a struggle to sync up every time, and that's why Greybeard exists as a character. He's when things go really, really poorly. So somewhere between that and by the way, you're just right. Like when Yuri was supposed to go, because the cult they're always on to Kelsebeth's entire plot. So they set up to send, the Yuri from that world or someone compatible enough, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the same person that is insinuated. That's who they set up for Green. But Green shows up, it doesn't work. It doesn't match. But it's a case by case and it's a struggle. And that's actually going to be a bigger, because there may be a different way for them to do this same thing in the future. Although who they is, it may be different than you're expecting too. The most important part of the book, in many ways, if you want to understand the plot, is Ren gives a speech in the church. Not Ren. When the new arrivals are given their speech in the church before they strip and have to change out of their current clothes into the same clothes, in essence. But no, they're giving a speech about pilgrims, and that's what's going on. That's the book. You want to know why they're coming here? Well, it's kind of that. It's religious persecution and a dying world for their beliefs. And that's also going to lead you directly into what Clume is and what Clume wants, which is probably not exactly what you'd expect a space god to want. But he's been telling you all along, so you're good. Did that answer it at all, or?
Yeah, no, that did.
Did I just put enough word salad out there that you shut up?
This is sort of in an hour's time. I'm going to hang on. That didn't make any sense at all. What the?
I do think that there is how like when a long running franchise of films over explains how everything works and it loses all the magic. Like I would never sit under my hood and write out a list of rules for how the mind swap exactly works. I want a big piece. I want it to be consistent in how it acts inside the story, but like it's bullshit science to begin with. So my deal would be just to make it consistent, and don't break those rules. But as far as like, is there we got to do it in 16 and a half minutes? No, I don't know what that means, and I don't want to have to think. I'm not a theoretical physicist. I can't get there.
So I mean, technically, like if you have one of those, like, they have these mini, like kind of EEG machines, right, to measure your brain waves, like when you're sleeping and stuff like that. But you can run, you can track your brain waves, right, record them, and you can conceivably just run them through a simoscope and, have them have the, those brain waves like vibrate through a solid medium, and you could see that. So I was thinking, like, if it's all like vibrationally based, maybe it's one of these things where it's like this person, like the vibration has to match this other person's. I don't know where you get a simoscope and integrate that, but now my mind's going off in several different directions.
I just viewed it as so there is a phenomenon that is not well understood. That follows nuclear explosions. And when I say follows nuclear explosions, there's a little bit of a misnomer, because the effects are actually seen and felt before the explosion, because the impacts are so great that we feel the impacts. Even though they take place after, the way the human brain works and the way memory works, we perceive the events before they occur. Okay. I think that's a little bit of where how I look at this. Is that the timing can't work because it's that cataclysmic. It's that much of a blight to your senses that we kind of interpret them later. And actually, this plays into Bleak December quite a lot, because Bleak December is a book about memory. And, that's a book that's transparently about Alzheimer's and dementia. And that very, very much involved with where this whole mind swapping concept is going, by the way. So if you can control memories, you're basically controlling reality, because none of us perceive reality in the exact split second it occurs. It always takes at least a microsecond to process. So everything we do in real time, whether it's talking to each other or clicking on a keyboard, is actually a second behind. Nothing is real time. And that's a difficult concept for us to understand, because humans want to think of ourselves as godly. But we also are thinking of time wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We think of things happening at this moment, when in reality it's a band, and different things have happened at different points on that continuum. And you're flat putting your flashlight on just a specific part of the band, and that's what you see and hear and think and feel. It's not that this pen is being created every moment. It's here consistently until I move it, right? So the truth is, I'm looking at it in this moment, and I'm perceiving it a microsecond behind when it actually is there. And that failure on a big enough scale is perhaps why certain things, like understanding that we won't even notice our sun burnt out. If we could live long enough, we would never even notice the moment our sun burns out. So, and that's kind of what that's the territory Bleak December helps to flesh out in this world.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, you need to buy that book.
Yes.
See what I did there?
Buy my book. Buy my book.
And that book now actually gets me paid. So
We were about 2 more minutes. If you kept going, you were going to bend a spoon with your mind.
Yeah.
Wow, that was fast.
well, Yuri is named after Yuri Geller, so that's not completely crazy. Chris, did you have something?
Yeah. So 2 points I was wanting to think I thought about while discussing everything. First being, I guess I don't read the other books. I'm going to go back and read them because I enjoyed this one so much. It's kind of reminds me of, I don't know how many gamers we have watching this or other stuff like that. I know Matt plays a lot of games. I don't know about Jeff or anything like that. Suda51.
Jeff plays games, but only with women.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is a game director, Suda51, Japanese game director, makes a lot of avant-garde kind of video games, but they kind of have little touches of all the different games all together, like one kind of shared universe. So if you're a big fan of it, you can kind of pick it up, but if you are not, you can enjoy them piece by piece. Mm-hmm. So that kind of description can remind me of that. And the second thing I thought about is your description way earlier about, like, are we picking up what you're putting down essentially as you write things? To me, that kind of like comes across with Kelsey Beth talking through the 8, where it's kind of like writing is kind of like telepathy, where it's like, I'm putting my thoughts out there. Are you perceiving them the way I am putting them out there?
Yep, that you got that 100%. Because how does Chidima receive the message?
Yeah,
when we see from her point of view, it's not cut and dry. All her baggage is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely the concept, and that's also that's reflected in Bleak December too. There's a critical scene in Bleak December. Jeff can probably just nod here. It's the biggest, most violent set piece in the piece. It's the thing I had to watch a bunch of death videos online to get myself in the headspace to write. But that moment definitely takes place in Maddox, the character Maddox's headspace, as much as it takes place in reality. So yeah, that's always something I'm interested in, is like those heightened moments, those moments you communicate. And there's definitely an analog to like the process of writing or making a film or telling a joke, right? Because you can tell a really funny joke really badly and not get a laugh, right? So the joke isn't inherently just funny; it's in the telling, and in the charisma of the telling, which is a little bit different, but that's a bigger conversation.
And also, I was going to say is about like going back with surprises. I also was really enjoyed the surprise of using the book cipher between Kelsey Beth and her crew, and then she had the realization like, oh, let me get another book, and also seeing somebody else use a book cipher as well. And it's like, wait, what the fuck's going on?
Right. And there is a cipher in the book. It's what
Oh yes,
Divide by Zero as well. And there might be a big hint in the number of seconds between glitches and what a certain animal is called. We'll just say that.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to hopefully like a reference to Mandelbrot in an upcoming book now.
You know, it wasn't originally Don Quixote. I'm trying to remember what it was. Do you remember what it was, Jeff?
You know, I forgot that it was
something-
a different book, and I'm gonna.
He has older versions.
Yeah.
But then the whole Don Quixote worked. I don't know, thematically better. So I had to go back and because there's lines, you know, to start the pair. So I had to go back and retool it to make it work. Which I was like, why do I do this to myself? Why don't I just get it right to begin with? Oh, that's right, because you're shit. Yeah. It's usually the answer, by the way.
And none of us are like, no, you're not, Lauren.
No, it's fine. Believe me.
Nah. I imagine you're always your own worst critic. Unless Jeff is in the room, I suppose.
Listen, you love what you do. You never work a day in your life.
Dream work makes the teamwork.
That depends wildly on what we're talking about you doing. I think. Did you have any questions, Dan?
Did any people in your real life that you can speak about anyways inspire characters in this particular book?
Okay, let me just say outright that Jamie is not Jamie.
Oh.
Let me just put that out there. The character was written before I ever knew anyone named Jamie.
I was not thinking that at all, actually. It's weird.
Just because it's going to be someone's at some point. And I even considered changing it at this point, but I was like, I'm not doing all that work because I'm way too lazy.
Or famous people, I should say.
So no, you know, I think the truth is that, and this could sound awful, but I don't think any of us really get to know maybe more than a few people well enough to turn them into characters. The process of creating a good character, you have to kind of understand like how that character works, right? And I hate to say it, but unless you probably have, you know, loved ones, family members, and maybe a couple friends that are close enough for you to glean enough to create a character really based on them. That said, are there little things that all of you probably subliminally gave me for characters? Oh, absolutely. But no one's based on any. But I'll tell you what, there's not a book I've published where someone doesn't claim exactly that about themselves.
Really?
Yeah. Or I mean, my mother reads my work, and that's what a scary concept that is, by the way. And her exact review of Divide by Zero. You ready for it? I don't want to get any of those people angry at me. Whole book for her.
That's perfect.
But like she'll get like, oh, you know, you use this word on this page, and I circled it. Look, you see, and we had a cat name that when you were growing up. I'll be like, oh Jesus, that really didn't play into. But I think when people know you, they tend to read into the work. That's why I guess in a way it's a little bit like scarier when people who you know read a work, because you know what are they going to start thinking? Like, is every character who's a bad parent figure? Is my parents going to look at it and go, well, you know, Lauren, we tried. And it's like, no, I had a great childhood. Stop it. You just because it's someone's father doesn't mean it's yours or your mother. But I don't work that way. I know there are writers who say that they do work that way, and I don't even know how that would work. I mean, Matt, could you really base someone on someone you know?
I never have. I mean, I've had the same thing where people have claimed it after the fact, but no, you're right. You don't know that many people that well enough to do it, and even then, it kind of feel wrong to me with some of the situations I put characters in.
Yeah, right. Jeff, have you what do you base your characters on? I mean, you're psychic rapists.
Yeah, yeah, definitely no one real. Big old disclaimer
for legal reasons. He has to say that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with both of you. I could never take a person I know in real life and try and fictionalize them. It would feel, well, first of all, disrespectful to the person, right? Like it would be rude to take someone I know, whether I like them or not, right? To unethical, I think is maybe even a better way to put it, to put them in my book. Just doesn't seem right. So purely fictionalized. And I'm sure there's, individual traits or characteristics that might be pulled from different people, but it's so removed, it could never actually be an actual person.
The more common, I guess, question that writers receive is like, is your main character just you? Right. And that's insane to me, because the way I build, I like, there is no separation. Jeff said this way too many times. I'm sorry, dude. There's no separation between plot and character and setting. They all have to be built together if it's going to make a bit of sense. So like, I no offense out there if you're a writer who does this. We all work differently. It's cool. And if it works for you, it works for you. But if you have a binder filled of like character notes, maybe tell your story first. I mean, I think there's a lot of things we do to avoid actually doing the writing, and that seems like that's part of that. Like I can't put myself in these stories because I'm not in. I go to work 6 days a week. I stock some shelves. I fire some people. This is what I do. I just don't do any of this cool stuff that my characters do. So how would I put myself in that shoes? Like, there's not even a point of like crossover there. I don't know. I'm not saying I don't have my nipples, tattooed into stars. I'm just saying I'm not Kelsabeth.
Well, coincidences happen, right? There's a reason. I mean, yes, my villains are all named Lorne, but coincidence.
And at least one is.
Yeah.
They're just different spellings. Like there's Loarn now.
Yeah.
I get
Lyrne.
I still get junk mail in all those spellings, so don't worry about it. Also invited to female only anthologies. Yeah, my name is a gift. It really is.
Mm-mm.
Is there anything else you guys got for me?
I think I peppered you with all of mine.
So my question for you guys is, I've been pretty vague, I think. It's not where you think I'm going with it, with this going, because you're not going to know. Where would you want it to go? And it's not going to change a goddamn thing about it, but I'm fascinated.
Multi-dimensional apocalypse. Like, I'm hoping one of these books, like, you put the apocalypse in the book, and then the story just continues, because that's not the end. There's more after the apocalypse.
I think Bleak December was kind of my spirit animal in terms of where I would want what I would want out of the series or the collection. But if you're asking what I want as a follow-up to Divide By, I think I'm probably getting it with Citadel, not knowing much about it outside of a high-level concept. I think, what's coming with Citadel is what I'm probably most interested in.
Jeff likes his fantasy, so.
It's true.
That wasn't a bluff. Everyone's going to think I'm being stupid and silly, but that kind of is a fantasy novel. Dan?
I'd be very curious, and obviously you can't answer this, if anybody still living in these 3 books will be a major factor by the time you get to the end.
I can absolutely answer that, and yes.
Okay.
If it's a major character who is alive at the end of any of the first 4 books, they still have work to do.
Okay. So, I'm curious. Like, if maybe we haven't met the ultimate main character yet, which...
That might be its own conversation about what main character is in a book series, because I'm not, even outside of this book series, I'm not sure if that concept really plays.
Yeah, that's true.
It's okay. Matt?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what's going to happen when, 'cause obviously we're going to find out, as you say, what Clume actually wants. When these characters kind of converge on that fact and figure out what Clune wants, how they're going to react to that.
Chris?
For me, I don't really have anywhere I think it's going. I'm just open to wherever it goes. I find myself enjoying the journey better that way in any kind of media I consume. I don't want to put onto it what I want it to do. I'm just ready to receive whatever it wants to do. And if I enjoyed it, I enjoyed it. If I didn't enjoy it, I find things I enjoy more likely to be that way. The only place I wanted to go is the bank for you.
Oh. Well, that would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not have to look for that third job.
Yeah.
Jersey's expensive, folks. So one last thing, Sam.
Lauren?
How pissed off are you going to be when I kill off Chidima in the next book?
I might leave the show. We'll see.